Well, hey there, everyone. I am Scott King, and I'm joined by Manish Sampat. Hey, Manish, how are you?
I'm good, Scott. How are you today?
I'm doing good, enjoying the sunshine through my window here. And so Manish is in the Watson group over at IBM. And what we're going to talk about is a little bit about what Manish does, what he's responsible for, what Watson is, some questions about AI. So we're going to really just understand where Watson has been, what it's doing today, where it's going in the future. So Manish, just curious about, what your role is over at IBM, and maybe if you could explain a little bit about what that role entails and then what you're responsible for delivering.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this podcast. So thank you guys very much. My role in IBM is really to work closely with our various sales channels. So that's direct sales, that's business partners, that's ISV partners, that is our digital sales teams, that's global systems integrators, to ultimately help them drive Watson sales. So that's working with them directly sometimes with their clients, and then also engaging heavily with our product management team to making sure that we are bringing the input from our customers, the queries from our customers back into product, so that we are aligning where the market demands are.
Super. So I guess you get a lot of the cool questions, right? You get all the hard questions.
I get a lot of the hard questions, yeah, or cool questions. There's always unique ones that I've never seen before, but it's an interesting role, and I really do enjoy it, and I love the variety of working with different lenses from different teams that I work with, direct sales, ISVs, business partners, etc.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So just explain to us, like in layman's terms, right? So our audience is really across the board. Normally they'll have a question and they'll actually have someone do the research for us, right? To find the answer. And then that's more of the executive type, but we have practitioner level people listening to the union too. So in layman's terms, like how does Watson's AI technology work and what makes it unique compared to other solutions? So if you could include some of the information that you give to other partners, the sales teams, the ISVs that you explain, like how do you explain it in layman's terms?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Scott. So Watson really is our generic brand for for the things that we do in artificial intelligence, right? So that's what we've named it. And underneath that, in this AI field, we do a number of things, from speech processing to conversational AI to advanced text analytics to intelligent document processing and understanding. And all of these are powered by our market-leading natural language processing set of capabilities that underpin these capabilities, applications, if you will. And so when we talk about what we do, it's a variety of those things. When we talk about what really makes us unique relative to others in the market, first, we've been recognized by Gartner as a leader in conversational AI with our product Watson Assistant, as well as an insight engine with our product Watson Discovery. And we're the only enterprise as a leader in both of those quadrants with Gartner. In addition, some things that we think makes us unique is we allow our customers to customize and train Watson for their specific domain. And the data that you train it with, the data that you use, we believe the data that you use and the insights that are created belong to the enterprise. They don't belong to IBM, and we don't use that to train our models. In addition, we've really built these APIs and applications really for business users to be able to use. They're low-code, no-code type of interfaces. They are underpinned by auto-learning, so they learn from the interactions and get better over time. The point being is that we've set this up so that with little data, you can get these APIs or applications deployed quickly and drive value for your organization. And then finally, we allow our customers to deploy these services anywhere. You can run them in IBM Cloud. You can run them in your data center on-prem if you have data privacy concerns or considerations, or if you have a hyperscaler, we can deploy our services on the hyperscalers as well. We think those are some of the key differentiators for why Watson is successful in the market.
Yeah, data privacy, right? That there's always a whole lot of questions around data privacy because, I don't know, maybe people don't understand like where it goes and where it gets crunched and where the output is. But we get a lot of questions about that too, because like our customer base is global, right? So there's just different rules and regulations. So curious. We've answered this question before on our podcast about how generative AI really just like elevated everyone's expectations and kind of maybe changed their perspectives of what this can do. Like, how has the past 5 months with all the generative AI chatter, like how has it affected your group, the Watson group, and then like what kind of questions that you guys get about it?
No, it's a great how do I say this, advancement in AI. I believe a high tide rises all boats, and that's what we've really seen with generative AI. What it's done for us is really rekindled the conversation. We haven't seen this type of excitement in AI since really Watson played Jeopardy way back in 2011. So, I mean, it sounds like it was a long time ago, but really it wasn't that long ago. And so generative AI is really rekindling these conversations, exciting the interest of our clients and the minds of our clients in terms of the capabilities. We've been using the underpinnings of generative AI, foundational models and large language models in our products since 2020. And we have a number of announcements that we'll make at Think, which is our big conference in May, around generative AI. But questions are really coming out around trust and transparency. Like what when we train it, what data sets are being trained on? How do I control the generative AI from hallucinating, right? From going sort of off kilter? And we've heard some of the stories of that. How do I make sure that it's being responsive? How do I get my data? How do I use my information, if you will, the enterprises to respond? Because, the generative AI, the solutions that we've seen that's captivated the market are general purpose models. At the end of the day, if you're an enterprise, you want the generative AI using your data to answer to your customers, your stakeholders on their queries and their questions. And then how do I take that and then, bring that and utilize that in my enterprise? And those are the questions that we're asking. Those are some of the things we'll answer when we have our conference and Think in May.
Okay. So May, I think I'm already out of town, so I don't think I can make it. But I think a couple of our guys are going, so
that's good.
I'll get the feedback from Think. So if people are asking more questions about AI, and I totally forgot about the Watson and Jeopardy, but now that you mention it, I'm like, oh yeah, like Watson beat the Jeopardy guys. But can you share any interesting or maybe unexpected ways that companies have utilized Watson to improve, processes or, innovative business models? Is there anything outside of the normal use cases that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of them, right, that come to mind, to me at least. One of my personal favorites is years ago we actually trained Watson to help a tax firm here complete people's taxes, right, and help the professionals complete taxes. Again, we'll talk about this some more about the idea of augmenting humans, but really Watson was augmenting the tax professional and helping them identify the potential deductions when itemized deductions were a thing, and helping those tax professionals identify that. So that was one of my personal favorites. What we've seen since then have been things like using Watson to help. We've got a large accounting firm that they do M&A analysis. And so we've actually augmented their solution with Watson, where Watson is actually analyzing financial reports, analyst reports, social media, things of that nature, and extracting information and insights and providing that to the analyst and allowing now the analyst to focus really on the decision making and the decision making and their analysis, and less spent time doing the research, if you will. And so we've been able to actually trim that research time down by as much as 20 to 30% and make them more efficient. Two other examples I want to highlight. One of them was actually Humana, which is a reference publicly. They have actually used Watson and goes back to one of the comments I made about tuning Watson. We actually trained our speech engine on healthcare to a point where we got 95% accuracy. So Watson is actually handling calls for Humana from providers. So people coming in, validating eligibility, validating benefits, and they've seen the cost per call being dropped to under $1 for them for those calls that are being handled. And what that's done is really allow their agents to focus on the more challenging issues and more challenging questions, and focus on that and helping to drive their NPS or their Net Promoter Scores, if you will. And then finally, another one that was really, I think, unique is we work with a large ISV where if you had an issue, if you're an enterprise and you had an issue with their software, you had to go online and fill out a ticket. Well, that ticket would take 2 to 3 weeks to get sort of sorted out and triaged and responded back to. We actually using Watson, some of our capabilities and built in intelligent routing engine, where once the customer entered the information into the ticket and into the portal, Watson will analyze that information, identify if there's anything, what we'll call a quick fix. If there's already a ticket created or an answer or response, we would provide that back to the enterprise to see if they could solve that. If not, then we would actually identify the appropriate engineer internally at the company and route the ticket to the engineer. And this actually shaved the amount of time it took to get these tickets answered by almost 50%. So just some different examples of different ways we've used it. I like to think of Watson as being very flexible and being handle any number of different things.
Yeah, the last example with the ISV is, I think that's the easiest example to think about, because that is like when you call customer service, you can't articulate your situation or your issue in a web form. Like, it's just too complicated. So that's when you call and you just want to talk to a person, because a person can understand like all of the intent and all of the categorization and figure out like who needs to work on your ticket, right? So if I call American Airlines, right, I'm just like immediately agent, right? Because it's just it's too complicated. But AI can do that. You just have to figure out like, okay, I want to try this situation. I want to try it in customer service. That's the easiest place to start, because it's a high cost with a high churn individual, right? The agents turn 100%. So that, I love that use case, and that is definitely the most popular one that we talk about.
Yeah, and that's the most popular one that we see is really around augmenting customer service, whether that's through a voice agent or a digital agent or other channels.
Yeah.
And leveraging Watson to be able to provide that omni-channel experience, regardless of where that customer wants to engage with you, and being able to provide that. And then really designing the experience the way the enterprise wants. And I'll just give you an example, Scott. I work with a financial institution. They were going to handle most of the mundane things through the virtual agent. So, I had a question about my account, or when will my deposit clear, things of that nature. But if somebody came in and said there was fraud on their account, they immediately escalated to an agent. They didn't want to have a virtual agent handling that, because that could be a very challenging issue, and they want to provide that hands-on customer service. And so what AI can allow companies, enterprises to do is to create number one, a better customer experience by making a decision around what journeys they want to automate and which journeys they want to accelerate or share to an agent. And then secondly, then taking the time, like you said, to really work with the AI system to give it the information so it can clarify, it can disambiguate, as we call it, the types of information it needs, so that it can provide an answer, or if not, at least then escalate it to a human, so that the human has all the information and can resolve the call much, much quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. And in situations like that, in the customer service, like, you can trust AI to make a decision, but some situations you can't, right? You get into all these ethical ramifications and ethical considerations. How do you guys take that into account when developing and deploying AI solutions? Like some you don't know that you trust a computer to do. How do you guys handle that?
No, that's a great question, and it's become a highly popular topic with generative AI in the last 5 months. Is all around ethical AI. And so what we're actually seeing nowadays, what we've done is we've been has been a leader in ethical AI. And we have our own AI ethics board that reviews all of our AI initiatives and efforts within the company. We have really 3 core principles, and all this information about our principles, by the way, is publicly available around AI. We look at, number 1, the purpose of AI is really to augment the human experience or human intelligence. So we don't really look to replace humans, but to support that. And the example I gave you, the M&A example, is one such example. Secondly, I mentioned a differentiator. We really believe that the insights and data created by the enterprise belongs to the enterprise. And so we don't use it for our own purposes. Third, we really believe that all these AI systems have to be transparent. They have to be explainable. And that's when the generative AI and some of the hype in the last few months has really raised the mantle, the bar on this one in terms of understanding how those models, really work. And so when we talk to our clients about adopting AI and the responsible adoption of AI, we start to focus on things like explainability, that the AI systems should be transparent. They should be, the user should understand what went into the recommendation, but the algorithms are providing. Fairness, they need to treat individuals and groups of individuals fairly. Robust in the sense that they have to be secure, minimize security risks, don't make it accessible to third parties or external agents. I mentioned transparency. I'll hit that again just because we want to make sure users are able to see how the service works. They understand the functionality. They have trust in the outcomes coming out of the system. And then finally, and most importantly, privacy. You have to prioritize and safeguard the customer's data and the data rights that are in there. And we've seen a whole plethora of regulations around data privacy. And so we believe, that these systems have to have that data privacy in them.
Yeah. And even internally, right? You can't have an AI go haywire and have me ask about internal questions if I have access to all this data, right? Because I'll figure out, I'm always outside of the rules. And so I'm always getting into trouble like that. You talked about the assistive AI, and you did, touch on trust the outputs of the AI. So clearly there's this human and AI interaction. What's the balance between maybe how do you guys converse with prospects and customers and partners about how do you manage the human expertise and the AI expertise? So we all have to get along, right?
Yep.
What do you tell people about Watson?
Yeah, so when we talk about this, we really talk about it, back to the ethics I mentioned, is augmenting the human intelligence, really augmenting the process. So, the example I gave of the tax professionals, where we're augmenting it by helping them find or highlight where there might be potential itemization deductions for the tax professional has to make that ultimate judgment. In the M&A example, where we're pulling information out of social media, out of analyst reports, out of financial statements, we're presenting that information to then the M&A analyst for him or her to incorporate into their analysis and do with it what that information, use that information in their modeling, if you will. So we're really, how we look at it is the purpose of AI is to augment, not replace human intelligence. And if we think about where we are today, the amount of unstructured information that is thrown at us. We have emails, we have social media, we have text messaging, we have the internet. It's just overwhelming in terms of the amount of information and how much we as humans can process. The AI systems can help us do that. They can help process this information, bring back the relevant information so that as an individual in an enterprise, you can use that then to make your decisions and augment your job, if you will. And that's the way really we talk about it. And so what we have done is we IBM have really committed to supporting workers as they transition by investing in global initiatives, in skills training around, the development of this type of technology around AI. And so we really focus on trying to help people upskill themselves and find opportunities within this new normal, if you will.
Yeah, that's going to be. I mean, that's going to be a big initiative. There's got to be some kind of nonprofit out there. I should look for somebody like that on upskilling, right? Because it's not going to replace people. It's just going to make people better. At least that's the way I think. But you got to learn how to use it, right? I've played with the generative AI, and it's gone haywire on me. But like you talked about what people are looking at in terms of AI and how to use it, how to augment people. What advice do you have for business executives who are, they want to adopt AI? They haven't done AI yet, so they're looking for maybe their first project, their first use case. What do you guys tell people about AI?
It's interesting. A study a study that IBM's Institute for Business Value did said that almost 40% of the companies they had interviewed were piloting initiatives around AI, and another 40% were actually considering it. So, and with the interest around generative AI, we're seeing an uptick in this. And so, for what I would tell companies or enterprises, that if you aren't looking at it today, you're potentially behind your competitors, your industry, where they're already exploring it. And so I would say, number one, act quickly. I think you need to move quickly to identify some opportunities where you can, where you think AI may play a role, right? And so to get started, you start with a strategic mindset. You have a strategy. You want to find a project, a domain, if you will, within that where you think AI can help. You want to then define the business problem or the issue you're trying to solve, scope that out properly so that you can make sure you understand what you're trying to accomplish, set up and define, what the business outcome should look like, what the success criteria should look like, so that way you've got some measurable or qualitative measures of what success looks like. Then finally, for any AI system, right, you need to train it on data, relevant data to the business problem, back to that part. And so you want to make sure you have data that's accessible, that's cleansed, that you can use to train the AI system, that you can then try it against. And then you want to execute, and you want to execute in an agile manner so that you're iterating and that you're not spending. And these should be sprints, a 2-week sprint, see where you're at, 2-week sprint, see where you're at, and then readjust as you need to. But the point being is, I would tell people to try. It's sort of, you don't eat the elephant in one bite, you eat it in small chunks. And I would just get started and take a lot of small chunks, a lot of small steps to start to understand and learn how you can utilize AI.
It makes sense. Except the elephant, I've never eaten an elephant, nor I don't think I would ever try. But I get the analogy, right? So with the 2-week sprint and the strategy and, looking at AI, amongst the people, the companies that you talk to and the people inside those companies, is there any type of congruent person that is looking at it, right? So this could be someone in the CIO organization. Like, who's the AI guy? Is it chief digital officer? Is it the CISO? Like, is there any kind of pattern? Like, if you could apply AI to all those conversations, like who's the least common denominator?
Yeah, no, I mean, most more often than not, it's going to be in one or two departments is where the enterprise sort of take on this is. It's going to be either in the team that's doing the data science and the data scientists who probably love to play with this and are looking at this stuff, or it's the CIO's office that's exploring ways, that they can bring this in to make the enterprise more efficient. But candidly, we spoke about earlier, customer service is a key area where we've seen repeated success in using, AI. And so your chief customer officer, your chief marketing officer, your chief digital officer, all those that may manage, your chief customer care officer, all those folks on the business side that manage that type of an interaction or engagement are also prime candidates for this type of technology, in addition to, let's say, the traditional CIO, CTO's office, or the data science team, depending on where they reside.
Yeah, I'd love to be in a fly on the wall in the CIO's office when all those people came to the CIO and said, "Hey, I want to try AI." There was an article in the Wall Street Journal couple weeks ago. We did a podcast about it that I'll point to, and just how CIOs are just being inundated with AI requests now. Like, because now everybody sees it. They change their expectation of what it can do. So they're like, hey, I want to try this. Like, how do I try it? So
no, and that speaks to the democratization, for lack of a better term, of AI to a point where business units, non-developers can actually start to play with it, and that's what we're starting to see in the industry, and that's good and bad, right? It's great because we're seeing the interest, we're seeing people try it. It's good also because then there's not such a dependency on the CIO's office, but it's bad because the CIO's office is still the one that has to manage all the things we talked about, ethical AI. That's the other piece of the equation. They need to manage the trustworthiness, the transparency, the explainability. They need to make sure it fits within the security protocols, et cetera, of their organization. And so managing that and having governance around the AI process is also paramount for these enterprises as they start to grow and expand in the space.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say governance in the AI process. That definitely has to be a future podcast episode because we get a lot of those questions too. Well, cool, Manish. I got some kind of off the wall rapid fire questions for you. I normally don't do this, but since you represent like such a unique brand, I was kind of curious if you could give IBM Watson a voice, like if it was a person, like a celebrity or a famous character, who would you choose and why would you choose it?
Great question, Scott. So let me say this first. I'm going to put a plug in, right? In Watson, our speech capabilities, you can actually create your own custom voice and give it a celebrity voice. For whatever reason, the first name that pops in my head when you ask that is James Earl Jones or George Clooney. Don't know why, but those are the ones that I sort of envision and can hear in my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, definitely, yeah, James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman, right? He narrates everything. So
yeah, he does too. He's another good choice, actually.
Yeah, we could just mimic him. So if IBM Watson had a hobby or like a favorite leisure activity, what do you think it would be?
I think of Watson as it would do something like the America Cup, the sailboat races, or like the Formula One racing. And the reason being, again, back to the conversation we had earlier, it's processing a bunch of data, structured and unstructured information, and providing that information to augment and provide the driver or the skipper of the boat the information to make the decision ultimately, right? And so I think like those would be the areas where Watson would find interest or a hobby, if you would.
Yeah, I like the Formula One example. I actually just rewatched a race last night because I finished the whole F1 series on Netflix. So now I'm watching recorded races. But the orchestration and the speed of how everything happens, especially amongst like all the data and all the people, and then the processes, right? I mean, it's very similar to what we talk about. Intelligent automation and then using AI to enhance that. So the F1 example is perfect. Do you like F1? Like you chose those examples. Like what's your favorite leisure activity?
I'm not an F1 driver. I did like NASCAR and stuff growing up, but my favorite hobby or leisure activity, I think, is I like to travel, but outside of that, in terms of sports, I love to play soccer. And I'm trying to learn how to play golf. So those are where I spend a lot of my time right now.
All right, so outdoor, I like it. And you live in a place where the weather's good all the time, so you can do both of those easily.
I can't complain in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, we have the same weather here in Dallas. So if IBM Watson were to write a book about its experiences working with business, like what would the title be?
Actually, it's an old business book that I read in grad school, and I'm actually going to say it's Competing for the Future, because I think where we are today with Watson and AI, we've seen the advancements from where we played Jeopardy to where we are with generative AI, and the future is still in front of us, I think, and so we're still very much at the early stages of the races. I like to think of this as a marathon, and we still haven't crossed the 5-mile mark. So I think it's very much competing around the future and finding those opportunities, finding, for enterprises to find where where AI, where Watson can augment their processes and make them more efficient, help them drive to success, whether that be, financial or otherwise. Still think we've got a long ways to go, but I think it's competing for the futures if I had to give it a title.
Okay. That's a pretty good title. I may title this podcast Competing for the Future because that's pretty good. Well, I appreciate it, Manish. Do you have any closing thoughts, like anything that we talked about today? Advice to executives. We talked about ethical AI. We talked about processes and customer service. Like anything you want to close with?
I tell companies and enterprises, I think it's important. We talked about just getting started. Even if something's small, right? Just pick something small and get started and try and fail. You learn from your success. You learn more sometimes from your failures than your success. So if you don't try, you're not going to learn. And the sooner you get on that path, I think with this technology and the capabilities of what's going to come in the future, I think you'll start to find those opportunities and that success for your enterprise.
Okay, perfect. Again, really appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the Union Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Till next time.